Welcome to the Friday Night Campfire Stories. My name is Rob and I will be your host for this evening. If you are new here, for the past 5 weeks we have been reading through my story, Astral. It's been quite a unique, thrilling, and mysterious story that hopefully today we get some more answers. If you have not watched chapters 1 through 5, I would definitely recommend doing that before jumping into this one. And also, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. It's absolutely free and it will help the channel grow. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of August, and with your support, I know that we'd be able to get that done. But let's not waste any more time. This is chapter 6 of my story, Astral.
Callum jolted awake in his bed, his heart racing. The memory of Talon's voice and the weight of his gaze made his chest tighten. He reached for his phone and opened a message to Reese. He stared at the screen, his thumb hovering over the send button before hitting it. The response came quickly. There was a pause. The 3 dots indicating Reese was typing appeared, then disappeared, then reappeared. Callum nodded to himself, though his worry didn't ease. The day dragged on. Callum sat at his desk at work, staring at the same spreadsheet he hadn't finished the day before. His head felt heavy and his eyelids drooped. The sleepless nights were catching up to him, and even the lingering adrenaline from the sanctum couldn't keep him fully alert. Around mid-morning, his phone buzzed on the desk. He glanced around to make sure no one was watching and picked it up. Callum blinked at the message, his exhaustion making it hard to process. He looked at the clock, 10:37 a.m., and then back at the screen. Callum frowned, glancing around the office. Carrie was busy typing away at her computer, and Mr. Stevens wasn't in sight. Taking a deep breath, he leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. He let the weight of sleep take over, pulling him under quickly. The silvery glow of the dream world greeted him instantly, and as his projection took form, he realized he wasn't alone. Reese stood next to him, his arms crossed and his expression serious. "Took you long enough," Reese said, his voice carrying a sharp edge. "Reese?" Callum asked, his surprise evident. "What's going on?" Reese gestured for him to follow to a quieter room. Reese led him to the break room. "You were right," Reese said as they walked. "Talon's up to something. I've been hearing rumors for months now, but I didn't want to believe them." "What kind of rumors?" Callum asked, his voice tightening. "That he's been experimenting with darker aspects of astral projection," Reese said, his tone grim. "There are things we're not supposed to do. Things Eldrin has forbidden. Talon doesn't care. He's been recruiting others, convincing them that Eldrin's holding us back." Callum's stomach churned. "What kind of things?" "Breaking into people's minds, manipulating dreams, possessing physical bodies for longer than the natural limit." Reese's voice darkened. "Some even say he's trying to access the void." "The void?" "It's the space beyond this world. The place between dreams and reality. It's dangerous. No one who's entered it has ever come back." Callum stopped walking, his fists clenching. "Does Eldrin know?" Reese turned to face him, his expression troubled. "Not yet. I didn't want to tell him without proof. But if Talon's really planning something, Eldrin could be in danger." "Then we need to tell him," Callum said firmly. Reese hesitated, then nodded. "Tonight, meet me at the Batman building at 9. We'll go to the sanctum together." Callum felt a spark of determination ignite in his chest. "I'll be there." Reese placed a hand on Callum's shoulder, his usual playful demeanor replaced by something far more serious. "Be careful, Callum. Talon's dangerous, and if he knows you're onto him—" "I can handle it," Callum said, though the weight of Reese's words stayed with him. As the pull of reality began to drag him back to his waking body, Callum steeled himself. Tonight, they would warn Eldrin. Whatever Talon was planning, Callum wouldn't let it go unchecked. "Callum!" The voice jolted Callum back into reality, yanking him out of the dream world with a force that left him disoriented. He blinked up at the fluorescent lights of the office and the stern, scowling face of Mr. Stevens towering over him. "Sleeping? In the middle of the workday?" Stevens snapped, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. Callum sat up quickly, his heart sinking. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to—" "Save it!" Stevens cut him off, his voice cold and final. "Office. Now." The tension in the small room was suffocating as Callum sat in front of Stevens's desk. The older man leaned forward, his jaw tight, and his eyes narrowed in frustration. "This is the second time in as many days that I've had to call you in here," Stevens began. "Your performance has been slipping, you've been distracted, and now you're sleeping on the job. I gave you a chance to turn things around, Callum, but it's clear your head's not in the game." Callum opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. What could he say? That his mind was consumed by a secret world of astral projection and rebellion? That he was fighting battles in his dreams? "Callum," Stevens said, his voice softer but still firm. "I'm sorry, but this is your last day. Finish up your tasks and clear out your desk by 5. The words hit like a gut punch. Fired. It was over. Callum nodded numbly, unable to muster the energy to fight back. "Understood," he said quietly. Stevens sighed and leaned back in his chair. "You're a good kid, Callum. But you've got to figure out where your priorities lie. I hope you land on your feet." Callum spent the rest of the day in a haze, going through the motions of packing his things and saying awkward goodbyes to co-workers who barely knew him. By the time he got home, his thoughts were a tangled mess of emotions. He felt the weight of failure pressing down on him. Losing his job stung, but what made it worse was the uncertainty of the dream world. Talon's rebellion, Eldrin's warnings about dark powers, it all felt like it was spiraling out of control. Callum sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the clock. It was only 6:30 p.m., and the hours stretched ahead of him like an eternity. He tried watching TV, but the noise grated on his nerves. He tried eating, but his appetite was gone. By 8:30, he couldn't wait any longer. He turned off his alarm clock. There was no need for it now. At exactly 8:50, he laid back on his bed, closed his eyes, and willed himself into sleep. The Batman building loomed before him, its twin spires cutting into the night sky like jagged blades. Callum landed lightly on the rooftop, the wind tugging at his jacket as he scanned the skyline for Reese. 9 o'clock. He waited, pacing back and forth, his nerves gnawing at him with every passing second. The city below was eerily quiet, and the faint hum of the dream world did nothing to calm him. 9:10. "Where are you?" Callum muttered, glancing over the edge of the building. By 9:15, he couldn't wait any longer. Fear clawed at him, fear that Talon might strike before he and Reese could warn Eldrin. "I'm sorry, Reese," he whispered. "I have to go." With a determined breath, Callum pushed off the roof and soared into the night. The flight to the sanctum was faster this time, his urgency propelling him forward. Eldrin was standing near the center of the sanctum when Callum arrived, his long silver hair glowing faintly in the light of the orbs overhead. He looked up, his sharp blue eyes widening slightly in surprise. "Callum," Eldrin said, his voice steady but curious. "I wasn't expecting you tonight." "I had to come," Callum replied, landing smoothly and walking toward him. "It's about Talon." Eldrin's expression darkened, and he gestured for Callum to sit. "Go on." Callum quickly recounted what he had overheard and how Talon's words hinted at rebellion. Eldrin listened in silence, his gaze steady but thoughtful. When Callum finished, Eldrin sighed deeply and leaned on his staff. I was hoping it wouldn't come to this. You knew? Callum asked, startled. I've known for some time, Eldrin admitted. Talon is a gifted projector, one of the most gifted I've ever seen. I met him when he was just a boy, alone and frightened, struggling to understand his abilities. I brought him here, to the sanctum, and taught him everything I could. Eldrin's gaze grew distant, his voice tinged with sorrow. But as his powers grew, so did his hunger for knowledge. He wanted to know everything our abilities could do, every secret, every possibility. But there are some things, Callum, that are better left unknown. What do you mean? Callum asked. There are aspects of astral projection, dark powers, that corrupt those who use them, Eldrin said gravely. Mind manipulation, dream possession, the void. These abilities serve no good purpose, only destruction. I've never taught them to the society, and for good reason. The world already has enough darkness. We don't need more. Callum felt a chill run down his spine. And Talon, he's accessed these powers? Eldrin nodded slowly. I believe he has, and I fear he intends to use them to overthrow me and take control of the society. The weight of Eldrin's words settled heavily on Callum's shoulders. What do we do? Callum asked, his voice low but steady. Eldrin opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, the air in the sanctum shifted. A deep, resonating rumble shook the chamber, the stone floor trembling beneath their feet. The glowing orbs dimmed, flickering as if caught in a sudden gust of wind. Callum's head snapped toward the entrance just as the heavy doors creaked open, the shadows beyond deepening into impenetrable darkness. A figure emerged, cloaked in black, his presence commanding and menacing. It was Talon. He stepped into the sanctum with deliberate slowness, the faint glow of the orbs catching on his dark, gleaming armor. The plates were sleek and angular, designed to intimidate, with sharp edges that reflected the light like shards of obsidian. A long, tattered black cloak billowed behind him, and a mask obscured his face, its surface smooth and expressionless, except for 2 slashes of glowing red where his eyes should have been. Eldrin straightened, gripping his staff tightly as Talon came to a stop at the center of the chamber. Talon, Eldrin said, his voice calm but firm. What is the meaning of this? Talon tilted his head slightly, his voice cold and mocking as he spoke. Oh, Eldrin, still clinging to your precious rules, even when the walls of your little world are crumbling around you. You don't have to do this, Eldrin said, stepping forward. His tone carried the weight of years of wisdom, an unshakable steadiness. Whatever darkness you've allowed into your heart, it's not too late to turn back. Talon laughed, the sound sharp and hollow as it echoed through the chamber. Turn back? You still don't get it, do you? You've spent decades hoarding the secrets of our abilities, doling out scraps while pretending to be a benevolent leader. But I see the truth. You're afraid of what we're capable of. Afraid of me. You're wrong, Eldrin said, his voice unwavering. The knowledge I withhold is not out of fear, but out of necessity. There are paths that lead only to destruction, Talon. You've stepped onto one of them. Talon took another step forward, his glowing eyes narrowing. Destruction? No, Eldrin. Rebirth. The society is stagnant, weighed down by your cowardice. But under my leadership, we'll unlock the full potential of astral projection. No limits, no restrictions. True power. Callum felt a chill run down his spine as Talon's words sank in. Eldrin, Talon continued, his voice growing darker, your time is over. He gestured toward the shadows, and figures began to emerge. One by one, the other members of the society stepped into the sanctum. Freya, Orin, Darius, Zana, Lucan, Mira, Holt, and Quinn, all of them stood behind Talon, their faces cold and resolute. Callum's breath caught. No, he whispered. They're all with him? Talon turned toward Callum briefly, his voice dripping with mockery. They've seen the truth, Callum. They understand that Eldrin's rule has held us back. But don't worry, you are welcome to join us, if you survive tonight. Talon, Eldrin said, his voice sharp now. Stop this madness before it's too late. It's already too late, Talon replied, raising his hand. The reign of the society ends tonight. The first strike came fast. Talon conjured a massive ball of fire, its edges writhing with dark energy, and hurled it toward Eldrin with a roar. Eldrin moved with practiced precision, raising his staff. A translucent barrier appeared in front of him, absorbing the fireball in an explosion of light and heat. The flames dissipated, but Talon was relentless. He conjured jagged shards of ice, launching them in rapid succession. Eldrin twirled his staff, the air around him shimmering as the ice shattered harmlessly against a protective dome. You can't win this way, Talon, Eldrin said, his voice calm even as the attacks continued. Talon smirked behind his mask. Who said anything about playing fair? The shadows around him shifted, forming into clawed tendrils that lashed out toward Eldrin. Eldrin stepped back, his movements smooth and deliberate. He struck the floor with his staff, and vines of glowing energy erupted upward, wrapping around the shadowy tendrils and pulling them to the ground. The clash intensified, each move more spectacular than the last. Talon conjured a storm of jagged black spears, each one dripping with dark energy. Eldrin countered with walls of shimmering light that deflected the spears with ease. Talon shifted tactics, summoning a swarm of fiery projectiles that spiraled toward Eldrin in chaotic patterns. Eldrin raised his hand, and the projectiles froze in midair before dissolving into harmless sparks. You've grown strong, Talon, he said, his voice tinged with sorrow. But strength without wisdom is a dangerous thing. Spare me the lectures, Talon snarled, summoning a massive two-handed sword made of swirling black fire. He charged forward, slashing at Eldrin with ferocious speed. Eldrin blocked the attack with his staff, the impact sending shockwaves through the chamber. The two clashed in a flurry of strikes, each movement precise and calculated. Eldrin's staff glowed with radiant energy, deflecting Talon's attacks with a grace that seemed almost effortless. But Talon's anger fueled him, his strikes growing more powerful with each passing second. He unleashed a barrage of dark energy, forcing Eldrin to retreat. You can't stop me, Talon growled. You've already lost. Eldrin struck the floor again, and beams of light shot upward, creating a barrier between them. It's not too late, Talon. End this now. Talon's response was a roar of fury. He shattered the barrier with a massive surge of energy and unleashed a devastating combo of attacks, fire, shadow, and raw force, each strike faster and more relentless than the last. Eldrin blocked and deflected as best he could, but the sheer ferocity of Talon's assault began to wear him down. A blast of dark energy struck Eldrin's side, sending him staggering backward. Talon, stop! Callum shouted, stepping forward. But Talon didn't stop. He struck again and again, each attack finding its mark. Eldrin's defenses crumbled, and with one final devastating blow, Talon sent him crashing to the floor. The sanctum fell silent. Callum stared in horror as Eldrin's lifeless body lay motionless on the obsidian floor, his staff rolling from his hand. Talon stood over him, his glowing red eyes piercing through the darkness. The age of Eldrin is over, he said, his voice cold and final. And the era of true power begins.
So that is going to do it for today. I hope that you guys did enjoy. If you did, be sure to click that like button, hit that subscribe button. I make videos 3 times every single week. Every Monday I do an episode of Echoes of the Past, which is my paranormal history and hauntings videos series that I do. Every Wednesday is Far From Fiction, which is my true crime series. And every single Friday, the namesake of the channel, What You Watch Tonight, the Friday Night Campfire Stories. Also, my new book, A Perfect Journey Through Villainous Eyes, is available on Amazon now. It includes the book Astral, along with 5 other unique stories, including one book exclusive that you won't hear anywhere else, that we will not even be sharing here on the channel. So be sure to click that like button, hit the subscribe button, and as always, thank you for spending a little bit of your evening here with me.